Right.
You guys. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Classic Center. It's good to see y'all. I'm Catherine Bennett. I'm going to be your facilitator / moderator tonight, and it's good to see y'all. So thank you for coming. And I also want to acknowledge the people who are live streaming. We welcome you and are glad you're with us this evening here at the Classic Center. As you know, you're here for the Classic Center Arena Public Input Session number 1. We're so glad that you're here. And if you don't mind, if you have a phone with you, if you put it on silent, that would be great. And we're going to try to hold questions till the end. We have a very brief presentation, and if you'll jot down your questions and hold them for the end, we'll pull them up. And with this size group, I think you're all going to be able to get your questions in, so we're excited about that. Just understanding this isn't about are we going to have this, it's here. And what we're hoping to do is be able to answer any questions, concerns that you have about the design. You're going to see a lot of amazing work up here tonight about what the future looks like with the arena. And what I'd like to do next is to introduce our panelists. You'll just raise your hand when I call your name. Marcus Vess, he is representing Athens Clark Splas. Marcus's career spans nearly 3 decades, where he spent time in planning, design, and construction of facilities, improvements, and projects. He is an experienced director of large-scale capital projects and programs, and he's credited with delivering projects from a combined value of more than $1 billion. His unique understanding of the challenges our clients face stems from his time serving on campus planning staffs at Emory, Georgia State, and the University of North Carolina at Asheville. There, he was instrumental in the development of a campus master plan and management of various design and construction projects. Next, we have Paul Kramer. He is the president and CEO of the Classic Center and has led the center for over 25 years. Way to go. In 1995, Paul worked with the Classic Center Authority and local community in Athens, Georgia, to oversee the development and the construction of the Classic Center. To date, the Classic Center is a 350,000 square foot meeting and convention facility with a 2,100 plus seat performing arts theater. Chuck Hull. Chuck is president of Smallwood, a multidisciplinary design firm providing architecture, interior, landscape, and graphic design for a variety of commercial and institutional project types. Smallwood is a worldwide practice with offices in Atlanta and Singapore. Chuck is a registered architect, and his primary career focus is design. He was a lead designer for the expansion of the Classic Center several years ago. He has a great interest in architectural history and has designed many traditional buildings in a variety of historical styles. And we also have Don Deathless at the end, but very, very important, even though he's all the way down there. He is, as sports, recreation, and entertainment global practice leader of Perkins and Will. Don has built a reputation as one of the nation's premier designers of the most successful, cost-effective, and award-winning arenas, sports facilities, and mixed-use entertainment designation districts in the nation. He prides himself on his ability to listen and put the wants and needs of the clients in the community ahead of all other project criteria. So that is your panel. I am going to step away, and they are going to give you a great presentation. Q&A will be after they're all done talking, and I'll be coming around to you with a mic. So you get to relax, have your water, and enjoy the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you all for being here tonight. This is a really exciting time to launch a project like this. I say launch, although this project has been in the planning for many years. Paul can attest to that. And what we're doing tonight is really a continuation of the public input and public engagement process that's been going on, like I say, for years. This project, as most of you know, was approved in the SPLOST referendum in November 2019. So it's already been approved. The site, the specifics of the project were voted on by most of you who approved this project. So we've got about a 20-minute presentation. We'll get into a lot of the specifics of the design and some thoughts and concepts that go into developing an arena. But of course, after that, what we really want to do is hear from you. Thoughts, input, questions, and really open a dialogue in terms of talking about the project. One thing to keep in mind is, although this is a SPLOST-funded project, the SPLOST funds are really going to account for about 40% of the total project cost. If you're familiar with the referendum and the approval of the project by Mayor and Commission, the challenge was to fund the majority of the project with private funds, which Paul will talk a little bit more about in a moment. So it's really a multi-funded project with funds coming both from SPLOST and from private funds. As you'll see, we have an incredibly talented team here tonight. You will get to meet each of them, architects, planners, people who really understand what goes into making not just a successful arena for operations, but a successful arena that will serve the community. Also, one of the things that's really important to know is it's not just this team. We have a user group that's been appointed by the county manager, and it's represented, you can see the names there, but individuals from throughout the Athens-Clarke County community who bring a real objective perspective on oversight of this project, as well as the Classic Center Authority Board, who is instrumental. Both parties, because of the two funding mechanisms, will be instrumental in overseeing the project. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who's going to give you a little bit of the history and background, some of the benefits that this project will mean to Athens-Clarke County.
Thanks, Marcus, and thanks to all of you for being here tonight. I think this is really a great start of the public process, which really is the hallmark of many of the SPLOST projects that we've done in the past. And I think that hopefully you're going to really see that your questions, your input is what we feel will really make the difference with this project as we continue to move it forward. I do want to say that if you don't know the names up here for the user group and or for our board, they're really great community servants in our community. And the user group particularly is awesome because there's a number of folks that have some specific experience related to the arena that I think is going to be very, very helpful as we move on and bring it along. But really my job tonight is to talk to you a little bit about how we got here. Why did the arena make it onto the SPLOST program, and how did it come about? Just to give you a little bit of background, the Classic Center in general, currently, pre-COVID, of course, hosts about 700 events a year. And just to put that in perspective, almost if you looked at all public assembly buildings in the country, on average, they're hosting about 300 events a year. And I think that the uptick is really because the people that designed the original Classic Center, the original board of directors, they really did this right. They put this building in downtown. They connected it with our downtown. They put it right at the doorstep of the University of Georgia. And truly, that has made a giant difference in keeping this facility booked and full. But at some point, my board said, you know, I'm proud that we're generating $50 million a year in economic impact, and we're doing a lot of events. But it's our responsibility, it's a part of our mission to say, how can we serve this community, both in terms of the people who live here, while maximizing that economic impact. What else can we do? And so many of you may know Jack Crowley is in the room in the back. He helped with the downtown master plan. And at one point, there was a piece of property just to the east of us right now that was thought about as an outdoor amphitheater site. And so we began to look into that as an outdoor amphitheater. Would that be a good fit for our building and connection with it? And the answer came back no. It would not be a great fit. That if we really wanted to maximize that economic impact, we needed to consider an arena. The arena would do far more events. They would be larger events, and they could actually generate more overnight hotel rooms and drive more economic impact. And so we didn't do one study, we did two. Odell, we did one, and it came back and said you'd probably do 125 events, and they would be different events than you're doing right now. Much larger concerts. So finally, we would get the national touring acts that tour the entire country to come to Athens, which is known for its music. But you'd also provide family entertainment to the many families that now reside here in Clark County. And then you could do actual sport tournaments that might run 2-3 days where people would have to stay in our hotels, shop in our stores, eat in the restaurants. Certainly with the university here and Piedmont College and Athens Technical College, we could help with community events and commencements. And then you would have giant conventions that would fill the arena for the general session, but absolutely need to be connected with our convention center. So they could do the food and beverage, and they could do their breakout rooms, and they could do all the other things that have to happen. But all while that was going on, you'd be filling hotel rooms and really supporting the local community. So with that, we began our journey. And I have to tell you, this started like 8 years ago. So I really applaud the board for going through all of that for the many years. But the outcome, if we were to build this, we knew that we could generate an additional $33 million to this local community and really help our small businesses. We would drive 600 new jobs to this community, which is really significant when you live in Clark County, because these jobs are really a great way that we can meet people where they are and begin to lift them out of poverty and make a career out of hospitality, and I'll talk more about that. Tax dollars, it would generate $8.7 million, and we would add another 100,000 room nights, overnight stays to this community. Marcus mentioned it, and it's really true. This is one of the few SPLOST programs that isn't being paid for entirely by SPLOST. So as we went through the process to get on the ballot, ultimately the Citizens Committee decided that they would pay for $34 million of this project through SPLOST, and that we would be charged with finding public-private partnerships that could generate the additional monies to be able to build a real first-class arena that could deliver all the things that we had promised to deliver. 5,500 seats. We could finally do concerts in downtown Athens for 7,000 attendees. We know that when we do things like widespread panic, every single hotel room in town is full. So we've got some good experience with that. And then, of course, we'd build a 300-space parking garage that would help to support the parking in the downtown area beyond that which we already have. But for me personally, this is exciting because I know that it'll help the small businesses. I know it'll help the hotels. But for me, this entire campus now becomes truly a learning lab for the hospitality industry. Whether you want to become somebody involved in the music business, and you might be going to school at UGA for that purpose, you can actually use this facility as a learning lab, whether it's food and beverage, hotel management, sports management. In all those ways, we can connect with the learning institutions right here and create something that is truly world-class. So those were the reasons and a bit of the background as to how this project came to pass. And now I'll turn it over to Chuck Hall, who will kind of tell you a little bit more about how we're situated and give you a little bit more of the context of how it all fits together.
Thanks, Paul. As an architect, I care a lot about context, and I'm sure Don would agree. Every project really has to fit in with the community. And of course, one of the main reasons for this venue tonight is to elicit opinions from you about the Athens community and how this facility will relate to it. So I did want to give you a little bit of background on where we are and how the project is interconnected with the rest of the infrastructure that's already in place. So if we look at the green area there, that's the existing Classic Center with the ballroom up on North Thomas Street, the Great Hall where we are, right under where the words Classic Center are. And then just below that, the theater that's behind the statue of Athena out in the plaza in front. Behind the Classic Center on Foundry Street, the green deck, that's the existing Classic Center parking deck, about 550 parking spaces. The Classic Center has plans underway now to add to that parking, which is shown behind there, future Classic Center parking. And then beyond that, on the other side of Hickory Street, Athens Clarke County is looking at another parking deck, which would be publicly funded under a separate program. There are some other spin-off developments that are happening as well associated with this development. There's a proposed condominium building that's at the intersection of Foundry and East Broad Street, which is part of this public-private partnership that Paul alluded to. And there's also potential future development flanking the planned municipal parking deck. The arena itself is behind the existing Foundry buildings on Foundry Street. So it's actually tucked in between the Foundry buildings and Hickory Street, and actually will, because of the demands of the program, span over the existing railroad to help us link to the rest of the facility. This plan here shows a study of the existing pedestrian pathways around the development. The arena is in the dark blue and the Classic Center as it exists in the light blue. The magenta area, which is right here, this is the existing multimodal facility. So we're really looking at trying to get good pedestrian connectivity between the new arena and the existing pathways around this neighborhood, but also it's deliberately situated so that it's immediately adjacent to the multimodal facility so we can make best use of available transit. The 3 points with the stars are where people will actually enter the arena, and there is good pedestrian access to each of those. The thing that we're looking at doing with this project is to try to create a network of elevated plazas and elevators to actually improve connectivity between the edge of downtown at North Thomas Street and the Oconee River and the Firefly Trail. So there's an existing pathway across here, an elevated deck with some sidewalk improvements that can get you onto the top of this deck. And there are elevators that will get you down to this plaza. This plaza will be the entry plaza in front of the arena. And so this plaza will actually connect through and span over Hickory Street and connect to this future parking deck, which will have its own set of elevators, which will take you down to the Hickory and Willow Street levels. So what we're looking at sort of as a long-term scheme from a pedestrian point of view is to actually improve connectivity through the site using this network of connections so that we can get an accessible, that is a handicap accessible pathway from North Thomas Street all the way through our site and down to the amenities at the river. Likewise, there's been a traffic study done in cooperation with the Transit Authority, and there's excellent connectivity to the arena and the available parking that's in the area. So we're pretty pleased with that. The way that the streets are laid out, traffic disperses pretty well from our area to the perimeter highway, as well as the Atlanta highway, and then to the north. As we know, when you have UGA football games, we have around 200,000 visitors on a typical Saturday for that event, and somehow we managed to survive that. Here we're looking at 6,000 people, more or less, for a typical sporting event, perhaps up to 8,000 for a full house music event. And finally, we want to talk a little bit about parking, because this is always an issue. This lists the available parking structures that are within reasonable walking distance of the facility. And to spare you the trouble of adding all these up, there's just under 4,000 parking spaces in the area, including the planned 800-car deck that Athens Clarke County is looking at building. But we do find that with these facilities that you don't really need to build as much parking as you think you do to accommodate visitors. And if we look at existing facilities here at the Classic Center and the type of events that have been staged here, a big event such as the Youth Baptist Convention has 7,000 participants now, and we have no trouble with parking there. So we're actually confident that with the parking expansion that's planned, that we have more than adequate parking for any events here. So I'm going to hand it over to Don, and he's going to talk some about the planning issues associated with the program that we're actually planning here.
Thanks, Chuck. One of the first things we always do when we're working on an arena project or any project is talk about the sustainability goals. That's going to be very important to us. One of the smartest things you've already done is chosen a downtown site. That automatically makes the building more sustainable. As Chuck pointed out, great connections for pedestrians to downtown, as well as the option of, or the opportunity to put it directly next to a transit center. That's very rare and very wonderful, and we're really pleased with the site. It's obviously a slightly complicated site because it goes downhill, but something we can deal with on an arena. The other thing we will look at throughout is looking at sustainable principles and getting LEED certification, which is both desired and required by the Athens and Clarke County. One of the things we really want to do is look at shading and overhangs, because we want to protect people from the rain as well as the sun for day events. And then finally, we really want to look a lot at energy for this building, being really energy efficient, but also looking at generating energy on site. So the idea is that we're going to have a request proposal go out to companies that would look at putting solar collectors both on the existing Classic Center here, as well as the new arena, as well as any new parking garage, to get proposals from them to do that, to actually create energy on site. So one of the first things we do as architects when we're going to go design these buildings, we get with our client group and we go to the community and we say, we want to talk about all of the events that will happen in this building, because not every one of the arenas we've done does the same type of events. For sure, they're all multi-purpose, but some people just say we don't want to do certain events. So we want to talk to you today about what events we envision at this building and how they will complement what's happening here at the Classic Center. So what we have in each of these is a diagram you're going to see on the right. Is what you're seeing is approximately 5,500 seats. The way it's a little difficult to see online, but the darker blue are fixed individual seats. So the idea is this is a high-class arena that doesn't have bleachers. It's not a high school gym. We'll have individual seats. The lighter color seats down low around the ice are what they call telescopic individual seats. So they fold down and they pull back, kind of like a fancy individual seat version of what you'd see in a bleacher, but it's not a bleacher. You get a back, you get a seat, the whole deal. And the reason I'm explaining this is these buildings have a lot of different configurations. What we start the design of the bowl around, though, is hockey, because that's the hardest event to see. You're watching a little puck. It's hard to see it, so you got to make sure all the sight lines work. So that's for hockey and ice events, and that's how we first start designing the bowl. But then, probably even more important than hockey and ice events are concerts. There's different concert configurations. The end stage one is the most traditional and the most important version of concerts. Music has always been really important to Athens. It's a university town. It is a music town. So having the ability to have these really large concerts or larger concerts is very important. You can see in that diagram, we pull the seats back and the stage goes all the way in the end. So you get way more seats in front of the stage, and we can get a better capacity and larger type concerts for touring shows. The other thing that we are looking at in this building is the university owns the old Georgia Music Hall of Fame collection. So we're looking at putting the Georgia Music, I think we're calling it Collective, as part of this building throughout the concourse with displays. So we really want to have a music and a community emphasis in this building as a starting point. The biggest events you're going to get in the building, the highest capacity, will be a center stage concert, and that's where you have all of the raked seating all the way around in the bowl like you do in hockey, and then you get floor seats all the way around and people look towards the center. And there's far less touring shows, but there are a number of them that do center stage. So we want to really make sure that this building can accommodate it. So that event and the next one, WWE boxing, those will be the highest capacity at events in the building. And those are heading in the high sevens is what we're looking at. So once you kind of do the maximum capacity, that's how buildings, they always claim the highest capacity because they are all bragging, and everyone in the business does that. So once we do this, it will no longer be listed, just so you know, as a 5,500 seat building. It'll be like 75 or 7,800. So just be aware that different events have different capacities when we talk about it in the future. Then, equally as important as these big shows is being able to downsize it. There's nothing worse than an arena where you come in and the building is half empty. So what we do is we have big curtaining systems that you can see on the diagram on the right, and they pull in and out and can go back and forth. And this is where we do concerts, Disney on Ice, family shows. This configuration is really important in this complex because, as Paul said, they're going to have big conferences here, and you want to have a speaker, and the speaker may not need 6,000 people. So we want to have smaller, more intimate events. Often this is a setup when we do with comedians and those kind of things. So it just adds flexibility to the building, which is what we want. The next one is basketball. Obviously, you have a big basketball arena in town, but we can also do that, and they put seats inside the hockey dasher boards to have a slightly larger capacity. The other thing is then we pull all the telescopic seats back, and then we have a floor that's 120 feet across, and you can set up 3 basketball courts crosswise. And this is the kind of sports tourism and tournaments that Paul was talking about. These people will come for a super long weekend, come by the hundreds, and it's a really good event. And so this can happen for basketball. It can also happen for tennis. It can happen for volleyball with a very similar setup, and also gymnastics. All of those or state wrestling, all of those kind of events, we pull the seats back and they can happen at this venue. The other kind of thing is, obviously, you got a lot of trade show facilities here, but when we pull all of those seats back, you can also set up trade show booths or displays on the floor, so the arena becomes an expansion of the expo if we want to do it that way. The other thing is it'll be one of the bigger banquet areas in town, and it has a super tall ceiling of probably about 55 feet from the ice up to the ceiling. So unlike this space, which is beautiful, has a lower ceiling, if you want to have a really spacious event, you could have that on the arena floor as well over 1,000 people in there. And then when we pull the seats back, we can actually bring dirt out on the floor and cover where the ice is going to be. And that's where you do things like motocross, equestrian events, monster trucks, and people love those kind of events. And so it really creates a diverse type of events for the venue. The other thing we do is we can cover the ice and put insulating panels over it. Then you can bring out turf, and then you are able to do arena football, arena lacrosse, or arena soccer. All that would be able to take place. And again, they have big dasher boards. This is not outside soccer, it's indoor soccer, which you've seen a lot in arenas. So all of those kind of events that will be able to happen in this building. And so what we really wanted to talk about and get input tonight is really the first input. We want to talk about these events. Is there anything we've missed that is important? And then the next meetings in the future, we're going to come back and say, here's how the building is organized, and the beginning of the discussion of what it could look like on that site that has been chosen between Foundry and Hickory, because it's a great site. Interesting, we got to deal with the hill. But again, as Chuck said, our goal is going to be connect downtown through this building to the arena, to the river. And so we'll have more ideas on that. But really our first step tonight is say, these are the kind of events. Did we miss anything that is important? Because it could affect how we design the building.
Test, test. Now you can hear me. This is our favorite part. We're very excited to hear what's on your mind and what you're thinking about, what your questions are. And so if you're ready, we're ready for you. I'm going to come to you like Oprah. I'm going to hold on to the mic, hence the gloves. You see the gloves? So COVID, we're going to be cool about that. So I'll hold it to you in front of you. And so is there anybody who has a question, comment, concern, idea that you'd like for this group to consider? It doesn't have to be a question, it could be a comment. Yes, ma'am.
As far as adding room nights, talking about the 120,000 plus room nights per year, any effect that we're thinking about for ADR, for those rates, or any kind of peak season that we're looking at with these types of events? Obviously, competing with UGA football, are we lining up just year round? What's kind of the spread for that?
Thank you.
So I'll take that one. We do have a committee that now looks on an annualized basis at the large events that already are coming to Athens so that we can better coordinate with the CVB and with the sports division of the University of Georgia, of course, commencements. So what we're always looking to do is fill those valleys. And right now, pre-COVID, we were roughly 64.1% occupancy. And so we still have work to do to get our occupancy up to where it really needs to be. And as far as rate goes, we're still a very soft rate in this market. And I think by adding these kinds of events, the tournaments, the larger conventions, we can absolutely fill in those valley periods and really offer a more consistent base of business to all of the small businesses in the area, if that answers your question.
And I think we've got someone online who's got a question for the team.
Yes, the first question is, does the plan include box seating for VIP guests?
Yes, let me answer that. So the answer is, we're just starting design, but the answer is probably yes. Generally in these buildings, what we're trying to do, say compared to what we did 20 years ago, is create a wide variety of seating. So it includes everything from hangout hospitality decks, chair rails, suites, loge suites, clubs, and just a lot of different areas where people can hang out. Some obviously are going to be more expensive than others. And the reason you do that is if you can upsell and give people what they want, the building makes more money over the life of it and it supports itself. And that helps everyone, and it actually helps balance the tickets that are charged for everyone when you have some high and some affordable. But at this size, what we've found is that 55 to 6,000 seats for hockey. On our other buildings, people have walked in and said, oh my God, there's not a bad seat in the house. So basically a building of this size will have a full bowl that is, say, smaller than the bowl you see in Atlanta at State Farm. So forget the balcony, it's even closer than all of that, even if we put, so a lot of these buildings may have suites actually up towards the back. The back of this building is very close to the ice or the event, so that's not really an issue. But we'll have a wide range, I think, of those types of products, from suites, party spaces, all the way down.
Thank you. I think we have another question online. Hey, online, we're coming to you. We're doing it all here. First, I've got someone here in the audience.
This is actually online, but through me here. Is ice permanent? And then I have another question as well.
Yeah, so the way the ice works, it's permanent, the pipes are permanently installed in the concrete. So what you have is a much thicker concrete slab. It has freezing pipes that are about 3.5 inches apart, plastic. Then you've got actually a heating layer below it, because otherwise you don't want permafrost. So they're in there all the time, and you can either turn it off or turn it on. If you turn it on, then you add the water and they freeze the ice. The ice is only about 1 inch thick. So what will happen if you have a permanent hockey team, such as we're talking here for the club team, usually most of the time they don't melt the ice after every event, they will just cover it. So you have your ice on the floor, you bring out about a 1 or 1.5 inch insulated panel on top of it, and then you bring out, like if you're gonna do basketball, the basketball is a movable court that goes on the insulated panels. But the ice pipes are always in the floor. You're just deciding whether you want ice made, and then usually they melt it during the summer and it's a concrete floor. So the surface, the base surface before you put the ice on it is just all flat concrete.
Generally, they make the ice in the fall, and then once the season is over, they'll take the ice out. But the cool thing is that you're able to go from hockey to concert to basketball, back to hockey, night after night after night, with a very easy turnover.
And my other question is about the solar panels. Did you say you were going to be putting out an RFP? Could you explain that in a little more?
Yeah, I'll let Paul do this one.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, we've got Andrew here in the room who's really helping out with that. Andrew, did you want to speak to that directly?
Sure. So we're going to be soliciting for what's considered or called a solar energy procurement agreement. It's where a private individual or company would install solar on the site, and then the Classic Center Authority would pay a fee for that energy that's delivered.
And really, we're looking to install those solar energy panels, if possible, on the roof of the Classic Center itself, on the arena roof itself, and then potentially on top of the parking as well. The 3 separate areas we'll be looking at.
Did you get your questions? Great. Andrew, did you get a chance? Okay, yes.
And I have to say, this is Carol Meyer, our commissioner, and I want to thank you so much for coming out and being a part of this. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Now we've got another online question.
Yes. Was there a specific reason as to why the hotel was removed from the proposal?
Yeah, I can take that one. Initially, we went out for bid, and we did find a developer that was ready, willing, and able to move forward with the hotel. The hotel community came to us, the board of directors, and said, if there's a way for us to increase hotel motel tax by 1 cent, would you not add to the hotel inventory right now, particularly with COVID and whatnot? We did do a study, and we looked at the fact that the hotel, by the time that it was designed, developed, and built, would not come out of the ground till 2023. And JLL felt sure that the hospitality industry would begin rebounding at that time. But nevertheless, we said, yes, we would take a 1 cent hotel motel tax increase in lieu of developing the hotel at this time. However, that did not make it through the state legislature. Our commission voted for it, and it did not make it through the state legislature. And so we will be looking at other development opportunities so that we can replace that income going forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Ideas? Just wait, if you don't mind, just wait 1 second so I could hear you. It's okay.
I'm interested in knowing what kind of architectural design, modes, styles, looks, materials you're thinking about.
That's a great question, ma'am. What kind of style would you love to see? Because I think that's a part of what this public engagement process really wants to flush out. While the inside of the building, we kind of know what it has to be in order to make the events work. What we really should be talking about is largely what should the outside look like? How should it relate to this community? So, ma'am, do you have any thoughts or ideas as to what style you'd like to see on the exterior?
Classic.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Mark Woods. I'd like to see a lot of native materials on the exterior if we could, specifically Elberton granite. They call it, they used to call it anyway, Confederate gray. I'm sure they've come up with a better term for it now, but it's going to be relatively easily sourced. It's extremely durable, and it's somewhat graffiti proof if it's polished. And I think it could really add to the look to have real stone on the exterior, at least on the entrance side.
That's great.
Thank
And I
you.
know that Georgia is known for wood as well. I mean, I guess we need to find a way to incorporate some of that into the project.
You got a whole bunch of architects up here asking for ideas, y'all. Let's hear it. What are you thinking? What do y'all think? I see a lot of smiles. What are you thinking? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have an idea, but I have a question. In terms of architectural styles for arenas, are there, 3 kinds of styles of arenas? Do you have anything to say about arena style
No.
for us?
No, there's lots of styles for arenas, and we as both our firms don't necessarily have a style, so we were going to bring that up at the next meeting to say, the way we look at it, it's called the Classic Center, it's the Classic City. So to us, this building should be classic, but classic could have a wide range of ideas. It can be a red brick building with big arches like this one. It could be more of what we call transitional building, a little more modern, but the same type of materials. We're also near a train line. It could have more of a train kind of emphasis, kind of like warehouse and dark steel. It could also be more like a very white building. If you look at traditional important public buildings, a lot of them, even in brick towns like this, look around downtown Athens, a lot of them are white or off-white building. Often they're stone. Stone is expensive, but so we were going to develop options. But at the next one, we're going to come back and say, what feels right to all of you? Should this be a continuation of the red brick idiom? Should it be slightly different as it gets closer to the river? What feels right for Athens? And we're going to come up with different schemes is our idea. Because sometimes, people don't know till they see it and they may go, that's not it. I would rather you look at this. So we're going to look at a bunch of options and say, what feels right?
Great. And we have an online question.
And yes, I've got 2 separate ones. So one is a comment mentioning that perpetuating the Athens, Greece classic city theme would be nice, as well as the Athena motif that the Classic Center carries. Just a note from our online audience. And then a great question here. What are the expected delivery time frames for the various aspects of the project?
Do you understand? What do they mean by delivery timeframes?
Delivery date, I think.
So my assumptions would be when will construction start? When will it be completed? Those sorts of things.
We're generally anticipating starting construction at the end of the year, plus or minus. And obviously, we've got to get through design, and then wrapping up construction at the end of 2023 is the schedule right now.
Anyone else? Wait.
Policies that you're following in your setting up your construction, are you looking at buying local? Are you thinking about working with Department of Labor here, that sort of thing?
Yes, I think the answer to that is all the above. Certainly, this project is being paid for largely by citizens of Athens, Clarke County. So it only makes sense to utilize all the resources within Athens, Clarke County. So we have a very proactive and rigorous process of encouraging local participation as well as DBE and MBE contractors as they are able to fulfill the requirements of the work.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as jobs go, talking about labor, with the 600 jobs that it would proposedly, have created, looking at the job market right now, especially with service industry, hospitality jobs, restaurant jobs, I think we're seeing maybe a lack of, a nice way to put it, of hustle maybe to fill those positions and just positions staying open for a long time. COVID aside, even with that being the case before COVID, is there any kind of pressure or maybe wanting to coordinate with the university about internship opportunities and really pushing for students to fill some of these jobs as well? And then with the summer affect that too, with students leaving?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll grab that one. That's kind of right up the alley. I am really proud to be able to say the Classic Center partnered with Athens Technical College and started the 2-year degree program in hospitality management. And then just before COVID came about, we launched a program, 4-year degree program in hotel management with Piedmont. Piedmont over this past year has now connected with us and asked us if we can really partner with them to create something unusual and special whereby the students could actually work a semester here on the campus and achieve credit for a part of their curriculum. So we're also serving on the Career Academy board, and we're involved with creating pathways for hospitality students. So a high school student can graduate with their degree plus up to 30 credit hours in their selected field. And I think in all of those ways, plus through the IATSE Stagehand Union, many people don't recognize that we can't do a show in the theater right now without them. They do a phenomenal job with safety and with rigging and with carpentry and all the trades. And so we're actually hosting public events right now to attract more people so that they can become IATSE stagehands. And no one really realizes that with the movie industry in Atlanta, right now riggers are in excessively high demand and they're paid very, very well. And right now, I know the hospitality industry is coming back because we have bookings on the books right now that are equal to what they were pre-COVID. And last month, we booked over 225% of our budget. So I have faith the industry is going to come back. I think it's all of our job to work on workforce development and to lift these people up and give them a career pathway that they can really enjoy.
Yes, sir.
I was going to say also, Paul, if you don't mind, just a more of an immediate thing that the Classic Center is doing is partnered with Goodwill. May 5th, that week is the week of Goodwill. And so we have partnered with them to hold a job fair at no cost to anyone here at the Classic Center. And we've just now started that outreach to hospitality employers. An email just went out today to most of the restaurants downtown, some of the hotels as well. And so we'll be ramping up those efforts too, in hopes to, and the Classic Center and IATSE and some other organizations within the building are going to participate on a larger scale, but on that same day as well.
Thank you. Any online questions? Yes?
Has there been significant external interest in purchasing the naming rights for the arena?
So yes, I can't speak directly to the naming rights, but I can speak to the sponsorship. And someone asked about the suites earlier. Just when we put ice inside of our exhibit hall in a very small way, we were able to dramatically increase our sponsorship revenue. And so we've never had a sponsorship offering that we've not been able to fill. And there is a partner that we'll be bringing in as a booking and marketing firm that helps us get shows. They too have direct contacts with people that put their names on the exterior of the buildings throughout the country. So I think either locally we'll find that naming rights sponsor, or if needed, we can go through the booking and marketing people to help us fulfill that.
Yes, sir.
So forgive me if I'm jumping the gun on this, but regarding some of the exterior design elements, one of the things that I've liked about some of my favorite venues around the country are those that are integrated and use their environments, like Red Rocks is a classic example, or Shoreline Amphitheater, or even up in Nashville, the new Ascend Amphitheater up there uses its urban environment very well. So a specific idea I had for this particular building on its site, we have the Greenway and the river valley just below. And I think it would be a really good idea to integrate that building with that environment, say with a large balcony and glassed windows on the concourse that can be draped off if needed. That's on the east side of the building, so in the afternoon, it's going to be shaded and could be used for all kinds of multi-use purposes. You could have weddings, you could have meetings, you could have dinners out there. You could also just open it up and use it as outside bar space. I think it would also give you a whole bunch of extra square footage if you can kind of jut over that road that's down there somewhat. A lot of the complaints about some of the extensions on the hall we're in right now years ago were that it created a wall between downtown and the river corridor. And a lot of people would like to see the river sort of rejuvenated and brought back into the community. So I thought maybe that would be a good way, at least visually, to extend the two and make them meet in some way.
Thank you.
So we agree those are all good ideas. That's kind of what, no matter what the exterior style is, whether it's old-fashioned, well, should we say classic or even contemporary, those are the kind of things we're looking at. And people may not really realize kind of how tall this site is, but what we're looking at so far is coming in high at a concourse level. So it's at the same level as the Foundry. So by the time you get to the east side of the building, it's going to be really tall over Hickory, not too tall. It's not going to be threatening, but it'll be tall. And you should get a great view down to the river and all the trees. And so in every solution we have been looking at, there's significant glass, as you said, out on the east. And we're also looking at plazas. And the other idea I think Chuck showed you is if we can organize this correctly, we're looking at that bridge from our building across Hickory to probably either near the top or the top level of the parking garage. And that would also have a view to the river. And then you can go down an elevator, especially people with wheelchairs. It would be very hard to get to the top part of downtown towards down to Willow, without all of those elevators that we have. And we're just going to add to that is the idea. But there will be significant views to the east that we think are really nice. And to the south, we're taking advantage as well.
And the other thing, if I may, is that pedestrian plaza is really going to be the connector that connects downtown all the way over. But it too will be a great indoor-outdoor event space. And now one of the big trends, convention centers, arenas, is to have that flex space of indoor-outdoor space and the connectivity back to the river. I think all that's in the plan.
Anyone else? Oh, hi. I'm sorry, lights on, nobody's home. Sorry about that. Here we go.
Those are really good ideas. I love that thinking. I'm interested in, we said in a way people take for granted what has to be inside the building. But I wonder about some of the ideas, some of the ways of making it attractive, a destination in and of itself with the Georgia Music Hall of Fame. Just interested in what ideas are happening about that. And I love what I'm hearing.
So the Georgia Music Hall of Fame, or I think we're going to call it collective. So basically what you have is a lot of display area, and what we have in the concourse of the building is large, tall areas with a lot of wall space. So the idea that we've talked about so far is that we will have displays around the concourse that talk about the Music Hall of Fame, the history. And then also when we've talked to a potential exhibit designer, he's often talked about what they call experiences. So you may have just displays on the wall, but 4 to 5 places on the concourse where it gets more intense. And you can have special displays about special aspects of the collective. And then the other thing, again, is that's on the inside. But as we have these plazas on the outside, we also would have the option of indoor-outdoor relationships and displays outside as well, because of your nice climate here, that would relate indoor to outdoor. So even people going from the garage, past the arena, up to the Classic Center would see some of that history outside as well.
Got a question here.
What about the piping underneath the slab of the arena floor? My mind goes to the Wallman rink. It's a New York City rink. They just could never get it right.
Yeah.
What are the long-term maintenance? I know it's gotten more sophisticated since the 80s, of course, but is there any risk? Currently they have the ice floor that is raised in the, whatever down there. Is that the best avenue, having it underneath the slab itself?
Yeah, that's how you do it. So certain buildings don't have it underneath the slab. You can do it with mats when you don't build it under, but that's never as good. It's never as long. So all high-quality multi-use arenas usually have it built into the floor. If you want to do hockey, and it's not just hockey, it's ice events, Disney on Ice, all of those kind of things. So the key is to know how to do it. And we have, not only I think we've done 60 some more arenas, and then we also have consultants that have done even more than us. And then the other key is there's, like a lot of aspects of this business, it's a very specialized subcontract to get it built. And there's a few people that do it really well across the country. So that one is more of a national subcontractor. You don't want to have someone do their first ice rink. And so that one's really important. And the other thing, this is an indoor building, not like indoor outdoor, so it's a little helpful, but you really just got to do the specification right, get a good subcontractor. They pour the whole ice slab in one full day. They put in all the pipes for weeks, and they come in and do a single pour all day, and there can be no expansion joints in the ice. So there's a whole series of things we do to make sure it comes out just perfect. And it's one of the last things, not the very last, but one of the last things that gets built in the arena. So you'll have a gravel floor for a long time, and then a few months right before it's done, they come and pour the slab. So it's in great condition. You don't have, forklifts and contracting machinery going over it.
Did that answer your question? Anyone else? Question, comment, idea? How many people in the audience were here when the Classic Center had their expansion and there were their input sessions? Were any of you here then? One? Couple? Yeah? Well, if you remember correctly, I was there too, and a lot of the people up here on the stage they're very genuine in wanting to know your ideas. They took ideas a long time ago and incorporated it into the final product, and I was really proud to be part of the whole program because they're very genuine about wanting your input, your ideas, your concerns, your worries. This is a great opportunity to be right here before the ground breaks and share what's on your mind. We've got another
Catherine,
question.
if I can comment on that just for a second, I do want to say that that's really the strength, in my opinion, of the user group as well. It was really neat when David Barbie said, hey, I know people that do nothing but go on tours for national touring acts all over the country. One of them, his real expertise is loading in, loading out. It would be really smart to let him look at our loading dock situation and really understand what the best way is to design this. And so to your point, Don said, absolutely, we want that input. And we did a special section and just had that individual help us understand the uses. And then that went so well, Dave Barbie came back and said, wouldn't it be smart to bring this other person that I know that really looks at the electrical uses of the bands and the weight capacity of how much can you hang over the stage and how much should you have set up to hang over the ice. And through that effort, we discovered 2 or 3 other really smart ideas that initially we weren't thinking all the way through. And so all of these little bits of input genuinely help to build a better building. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yes, thank you. Another question.
Oh, yes. Will the pipes and ice infrastructure allow something like an indoor horse or livestock show? They list an example they went to at the Augusta Arena. And what about indoor cycling events?
Yes. So basically, it's a big, heavy concrete floor that you can bring in any dirt you want. So, and if you've ever been to, I don't know if everyone's ever been to a motocross event, but they've got really big hills that the motorcycles come and then they go up. And some are dirt and some are just overbuilt. But we've had others where you got big piles of dirt. So equestrian is usually, like this thick. So any of that can be done over the concrete. Obviously, dirt events have a lot of grit. So sometimes they melt the ice, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'll just cover the ice with the insulation and then kind of a plastic. And other times they melt the ice. But we would be able to do all of those type of events. And then what was the last question? I couldn't hear it.
Indoor cycling events.
Yeah, motocross or livestock was mentioned.
Oh, and livestock, yeah. So, yeah, what this won't be is a fair building, just to clarify. So you can do those kind of events, but certain events, like at fairs, have big livestock pens, and this site won't have that. It'll have a decent-sized loading dock, so you will have a lot of that ability, but it's not necessarily a fair building. I would call this more of a downtown arena. So I don't want people to think this is going to replace an ag building at a fair. It's not one of those, but it's flexible enough to do any of those kind of dirt events if you want to do them. And then for the bicycling, again, often they will put in a velodrome. It's usually a piece of equipment that goes from place to place with super banked curves, and you would be able to do that as well.
And not really livestock, but we do plan to accommodate equestrian events.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have an online question. How is the arena planning for impact on adjacent neighborhoods, maybe speaking from the point of light, noise, traffic, and economic opportunity?
So I could talk about the impact of light. So basically, unlike a stadium, this is an indoor arena. So when we close the doors, even though there's a concert or a concert with a lot of bass, unlike an amphitheater or a stadium, you don't really hear it. It doesn't get through the walls. And then lights, basically, the lights inside are super bright, especially for hockey, because we have to have multiple foot candles, but you don't see that outside. What happens is that bowl I showed you is ringed by a concourse, and we can control all the lights. All the lights in the building these days are LEDs. They're on dimmers. We can download them. And so all we have to do is look at what we're going to end up doing with windows, how much light gets to the outside. But the big bowl lighting doesn't necessarily go to the outside. So that we could control very well. And I think there were a multi-part to that question.
Maybe covered it a little bit, but traffic and economic impact.
So let me maybe do the traffic too, because we've done so many of these. Again, the thing we like about this site is it is downtown. People automatically, or a lot of people who are not in the business think, oh my God, you're putting a building downtown, it's going to be the worst. There's nothing better than put an arena downtown because you have a multiple grid of streets and it automatically works better. The ones that are kind of don't work well are ones that have a big parking lot right near a highway interchange and no one can ever get in or out. But what we want to do and what works for downtown is people leave the event, some may go to the parking to the east, some may go to the west, a lot will come downtown, there'll be street parking, there's surface parking. You want to spread them out, and downtown arenas automatically have a better economic impact because what you're doing is people will come before an event, they go to restaurants downtown. Some will come spend money on the concessions, but a lot of people will go do that. And then they go hopefully downtown afterwards. And then you meter the flow by doing this and it automatically works better. As an example, our Winnipeg arena in downtown Winnipeg was 15,000 seats and we didn't add a parking space to the whole downtown. They had enough parking, people just walked and they distributed and they never had a problem, with any traffic capacity. It just works better on a downtown grid. So that's what we're doing. And we want to make it pedestrian oriented too. We want people to walk from there and make it as easy as possible to get through this building to get back to downtown. That's going to be a major goal of every design we do.
And I guess I'll follow up that CSL is probably one of the best companies out there at looking at economic impact. And they did some very thorough investigations in this arena, in this town, and that's where we came up with the $30 million of economic impact was from them.
All right, I've got a few questions here from online. First question is, what is the proposed material for the interior, such as seating, flooring, and lighting? And then I believe they also would like you to maybe go into a little bit of some of the emergency components of a facility like this, and maybe if you want to dabble in the ADA components of a facility like this.
So the materials, basically, you have a lot of concrete on the floor of the slab. You will have fixed individual seats, usually fully upholstered. So we'll look at that. We are also, it wasn't mentioned, but we're going to do extra acoustical improvements to this building because the concerts are so important. What they call lapidaries, absorptive panels on the roof and on the walls. The key is, unlike a symphony hall, you want to absorb sound in an arena so it doesn't bounce off the walls. We've got that. All of the lighting in new buildings is LED lighting, so you'll get the bright sports lighting, but all of that is on dimmers and can be turned down. The building can go black except for 1-foot candle of specially aimed lights on all the aisles for when you have concerts, because every act will want to black it out, but you don't want people tripping up and down the stairs. So those are just some of the things we've got in there. I know that was a long list that I probably missed half of them, but.
Right,
No,
the other question was, I think, specifically addressing life safety and accessibility.
Yeah, so life safety is really important in these buildings. And the way they work is when we get this big on, say, like a smaller building like 3,000 or a high school gym, they have smoke control systems that come on. So basically, if there is an emergency and the alarm goes off, there are massive fans on the roof that go to exhaust and take any possible smoke out of the building. The whole building is fully sprinkled. There's very sophisticated controls on these kind of buildings. And it links into the fire department, and there's an emergency setup for the building that the fire department can come up to the fire control center. So all of that is built in for emergency and safety, and it's really important. And then we have grade exiting out in all directions. And then ADA and accessibility for people with disabilities is also super important. And our we've been a leader on that and has been really important for more than 30 years for us. So basically the whole building will be accessible. All the ticket counters are at 34 inches, all of the concession counters. We don't drop some counters and raise them high. We will have wheelchair locations, companion locations. A number of seats on aisles have liftable arms, so you can get in and out of your seat if you have mobility issues. So all of those are built in. We look at workers and opportunities, not only the visitors. So we go through a long checklist for ADA to make sure we do that and more. Any place we have wheelchairs, we usually do power. Not every building that is not required, but if you have a motorized wheelchair, we did that. Someone mentioned Red Rocks. We did the visitor center at Red Rocks. And we had a person that came and said to us in that meeting, he goes, I have a motorized wheelchair and I need to lean back every 20 minutes or I die. And I'm like, okay, we are going to give you power and you are never going to run out of power in our building. And that was about 20 years ago, and I've done it on every building since. So there's things that are extra that we do just to make sure this is a really friendly building for all of our audiences, but certainly people with disabilities as well.
Great, and then I'm gonna combine these ones as well here. We have, will the arena utilize external digital displays, so on the outside of the building to promote events and or act as potential advertising space? And if you can expand on that, how will the arena be technologically equipped in terms of Wi-Fi, cellular data, digital ticketing, et cetera?
Yeah, so that's one. Again, it will definitely have digital on the inside throughout. It hasn't been decided on the exterior, better known as a marquee in the business for coming events. So we still have to decide that. Those are relatively expensive, and we got to look at locations. But basically, we build the backbone for all this digital, for advertising, as well as communications. And probably the big change in the last 10 years has been both what they call DAS, D-A-S, digital antenna system for cell phone coverage, and then Wi-Fi. They're different, but both important. So we always call it now FOMO, fear of missing out. Everyone wants to be at the event. Like if you're at a great concert, you want to take the photo and send it to your friends. If you don't have the right Wi-Fi or DAS, you can take the photo, but you can't send it out because 6,000 people are trying to do the same thing. So that's one thing in the buildings that cost way more than 10 years ago. Even though everything's more efficient, everyone wants to have that, online communication. And there's no payphones anymore. So if you're at, Taylor Swift and you're waiting for mom to come pick you up, you need to be able to have a signal. Hey, I'm at the front of the Classic Center on Foundry, come get me. So that's super important in these buildings now.
Thank you. I just looked at my watch and see what time it is. I also want to make sure that everybody here had the opportunity to say or ask what they wanted to. We're going to have 2 more sessions, so this isn't it. But is there any last call? Anybody have a question, comment, concern? Yes?
The money, private-public partnership like this, we get into a big cost overrun in year 2022 or whatever. Where does the money, is Athens, Clarke County capping at 34 million? I mean, what's the strategy when you hit rock? I mean, someone mentioned granite. You hit rock going down. I mean, there's going to be some overrun somewhere. So how do you accomplish getting what is being sold right here? What's the strategy there with the money?
Yeah, I'll take that question. We very proactively recognize that you don't know what you don't know, and you must be in construction would be my guess. But you're right. Construction projects notoriously go over budget. So one of the things we're proactively doing is making sure we have a conservative contingency for the project because we don't know what we don't know. We go to great lengths to try to figure out, is there rock? Are there unsuitable soils? What are the unforeseen conditions that might result in change orders to the contract? But the amount coming from the SPLOST funds is a fixed amount. So we will also be developing the overall budget for not just the SPLOST dollars, but the private dollars that will be coming in as well. And proactively manage that budget so that we anticipate the unforeseens. We cannot go over budget. We do this is what we do. And so we have a long track record of delivering projects within the budget. But you only do that by establishing contingencies that are conservative enough to carry you through and make sure you don't go over budget.
I will say this too, that Clark County is really, really good at that. They have contingencies on top of contingencies just when you submit your SPLOST budget. And then on top of that, we add more contingency to the overall project. So I feel super confident about where we are and where we're headed.
We will also use concepts like alternates, which are basically other components within the building that you can add should the budget allow. So we might not be making those decisions until down the road till we're sure we're within budget, but that's another strategy for making sure we don't go over budget, but we are good stewards of every penny that we have to spend on the project.
Yeah. You also manage the contingency throughout the project, because obviously as you advance the design and then get into construction, more and more of the unknowns get eliminated. So you start out with a higher percentage contingency, but as you progress through the process, you can actually allocate those funds to the budget and reduce contingency.
Whose money goes first? Who gets drawn on first? The city or private?
Sorry, if someone doesn't, if you don't mind repeating the question, just so.
Who's drawn out? Who we drawn out from first? The SPLOST dollars or the private equity?
Well, right now we're looking at this as a holistic budget. So we will not go forward with awarding a construction contract per se until we know exactly what we have in SPLOST dollars and private dollars. And so we'll treat that entirely as a holistic budget. So it's not really, are we spending one or the other first? Now, certainly SPLOST dollars are more available right now. So some of the early costs within the project are being carried by SPLOST dollars. But fairly quickly, before we make any commitment on the big ticket item, the construction, we'll have an entire comprehensive budget.
There's actually more private dollars going into this than there are SPLOST dollars, which I think needs to be said.
Landmark backed out and took parking places with them. I was glad to hear what you said about parking, because Baltimore has 60 parking spaces for the entire arena. So I'm hoping that we keep that down, but I'm just wondering if we have replaced that partner. Is partnership still out there, and how well are we doing? Do we have any gaps?
So we're working with Athens Clark County Commission right now. They wanted to have a committee that sat down and re-looked at the downtown master plan and looked at that particular parcel and made sure that we're being true to the downtown master plan. In fact, Jack is going to come and work with them through that program. I think it's next week. And assuming that all of that goes well, then they'll look at transferring that property over as a part of our intergovernmental agreement and allow us to go out for bid and find out what the private sector thinks could go down there that is in keeping with what we want to build down there and achieve additional revenue for the overall project.
Got another question online?
Yes, I believe this is our last online question, but speaking to the Learning Lab, is there a proposed pathway for local high school students to gain employment?
Yes. Short answer, yes. What we really want to do is not just create the pathway of what the students would learn in school, but we want to enable them to use this entire complex as a learning lab and actually come and intern as a part of their curriculum here and earn credits while they're getting hands-on education in areas of sports management, hotel management, event management, and the School of Business Music program.
Thank you. Okay. Now, some of you might have something to write with and write on. I want to give you 2 dates. Some of you might have your smart device and just want to text it right on there. We will be having 2 more sessions. One will be 2 weeks from tonight on April 19th at 6:30. Ooh, cool
Sorry.
sound.
That was me.
And then May 10th at 6:30. And we're going to be pushing out information to give you more detail on that, of what will be covered, the location. How many people here, by a quick show of hands, this was a okay location for you? Yeah? Okay, thank you. So April 19th at 6:30, May 10th at 6:30, and both of those sessions will also be live streamed. Both those sessions will also be recorded. This session has been recorded and will appear on the Classic Center website quickly. And I just want to thank you all for your time and how much you care about Athens. It's good to see you all. I want to thank the panel for all the hard work you're doing, and there's some people in the audience who would shoot me if I pulled them out, but they've done a lot of work too. This has been a great community effort. Thank you, and I hope you have a great, safe evening.
Thank you.